Alright guys, what is going on? So right now, we actually are going to do a comparison between the iPhone 7 Plus and the iPhone XS Max. Now I didn't write a script or anything for this, and this is a little bit different than the other comparisons I do. Usually I just talk over it, but this time I kind of want to do a speed test. In order for me to do that, I kind of want to have to do it this way. And excuse my voice, I'm actually kind of sick, but I think it's not that big of a deal, so we'll be good. And also the 7 Plus's screen is cracked, and if you guys make fun of me about it, it's gonna hurt my feelings. But the performance and everything is what we're gonna look at, okay? But actually, I'm gonna be honest, okay? At first, I thought the 7 Plus was going to be bigger than the iPhone XS Max, and it is, don't get me wrong, but I think the XS Max is actually easier to hold. And the main reason being is because the phone is actually a little bit slimmer, it feels like. Obviously, as you can see, like the bezels are smaller on the iPhone XS Max, but it just seems like it's easier to hold, and that has to do with it being a little bit thinner around the sides. So that's actually super cool, and I'm so glad they did that. But at the same time, I think the XS Max is just a little bit hard to hold. And that is actually to do with the fact that the screen is so much bigger. So on the XS Max, we have a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED screen, and on the iPhone 7 Plus, we only have a 1080p panel, and this panel is only 5.5 inches. So realistically, I mean, it is nice, okay? The 7 Plus's screen isn't horrible, but I mean, when you're looking at it in real life like I am, the XS Max's screen is so much better. And even just zooming in, you can kind of see it through the camera, but it's kind of hard to replicate just because it's so hard to focus on it. But you can kind of see how much better the XS Max's screen. The colors on the 7 Plus aren't horrible, but it just seems like they're a little washed out. I know it's a little blurry, but I don't know why it's not. Now, also around the body, we have glass on the back on the XS Max, where on the 7 Plus, on most versions, we have just a regular color like black or white or space gray or whatever, silver. But the main difference between these two, and the reason this one has a glass back, is because the iPhone XS Max actually supports wireless charging, where the iPhone 7 Plus does not. And that's really up to you whether that's a big deal. To me, it's not really a big deal. I don't really use it all that often, but it might be for you, so you gotta kind of ask yourself in the mirror. But also, if you look up top, you can see that the camera sensors have totally twisted. So there's a portrait, there's a landscape view here, and there's like a portrait mode here. It's the same setting. There's no difference really. It has portrait mode and everything, they both do, but just the way they're oriented. And I kind of wonder why they did that. Like, why did they change the camera this way to this way? And they changed it last year on the 10, but it seems a little weird. Like, why did they do that? Now, in terms of the performance, okay, the iPhone 7 Plus had the Apple A10 Fusion chip, has a quad-core processor, and 3GB of RAM, where the iPhone XS Max has the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a hexa-core processor, and 4GB of RAM. So that in and of itself is a pretty big upgrade in my opinion. You have an extra gigabyte of RAM on the XS Max where you don't on the 7 Plus, and that might be important to you. You're also getting a lot of other features, but you also have to remember that the iPhone XS Max is like $800 more expensive than the iPhone 7 Plus, so you kind of have to keep that in mind. Alright, I had to reposition the camera. Let's just go ahead and do a speed test. I know you guys are going to cry about me for that. We'll start off doing some lighter tasks. I mean, obviously the iPhone XS Max is going to be faster. It's going to be faster in every way. It's just kind of to see how much faster. Is it worth the extra $800, $900? So let's go ahead and load up some smaller apps. We can do the camera. 3, 2, 1. And obviously the XS Max probably opened it up faster, but you did have a dialog box there, so it's kind of makes it a little weird. We can go ahead and open clock. 3, 2, 1. That looked pretty even. Maybe the XS Max a little bit faster. Let's do maps. 3, 2, 1. So technically speaking, the iPhone XS Max did load up the maps faster, but it looks like they opened up the app at the same time. Let's do stocks. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, the iPhone XS Max was faster there as well. Let's do iBooks. 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, the iPhone XS Max is noticeably faster. It's not just even a little bit. You can tell it's like a little noticeably faster, as I just said. Let's do the App Store. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it literally just like opens on the XS Max as if we already like used it, as if the app was already open. We can do health. 3, 2, 1. That looked pretty even to me. Let's do phone calls. 3, 2, 1. It's almost same thing. Music. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, iPhone XS Max faster. I like looking at the subtle things like settings. 3, 2, 1. That looked pretty even. Let's go into general. 3, 2, 1. It's like the same thing in those things. Let's do calculator. 3, 2, 1. Same thing. Now let's bump it up and do Real Racing 3. This is a more intensive game, and they should benchmark and play at the same graphics because this phone's still pretty powerful. So let's see how it goes. 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, the iPhone XS Max is already like way ahead. And I mean, this is still like loading, and this is already past the loading screen. It's already up there. But the game should be loading in the background. So I'm just going to click cancel. And as you can see, it's still loading. So this already came into the game, and technically this one came into the game as well. But I'm just at two different phases in this game, but I would still give the edge to the XS Max just because it is that much faster. And I'll go ahead and show you guys the benchmark score as well. And you'll be able to see, I mean, we have 197,150 on the iPhone 7 Plus and 332,853 on the iPhone XS Max. So that is definitely an improvement. As you can see, it's about 100,000 something points ahead of the iPhone 7 Plus. Do you feel it? Do you notice it? I will be honest, okay, and I don't like hyping things up. The iPhone XS Max is very, very, very smooth. Every single thing I've done with it so far has been super smooth, super stable. I honestly don't have really any complaints in terms of the performance. And so in terms of the performance and main difference between these two, the iPhone 7 Plus is a fair competitor to the XS Max. So you can just see from the performance, it's not horrible. It's not like way off or anything. It's not like this one is 100 times better. And I don't think this one is $800 more better than the iPhone 7 Plus. Maybe if you like the size, that's one thing, but I will say that in terms of the performance, the XS Max is noticeably better, but the 7 Plus is also a very good competitor. Now switching to the cameras, this is honestly my least favorite topic just because we're at a point now where almost all phones and cameras and everything are very good. I mean, I can show you footage and photos and different things, but really obviously the XS Max is going to be better. We have the same type of layout. We have dual cameras. The iPhone XS Max's camera size is much bigger than the 7 Plus. Maybe it's just how they position or something, but they both have two 12 megapixel cameras, this one here and this one here. The main difference though I want you to look at is that the 7 Plus camera is actually one camera on the left has optical image stabilization, either left or right, but only one of those cameras has optical image stabilization. But on the iPhone XS Max, both of these cameras have optical image stabilization. So what does that mean? Basically means that if you're taking a video or something like that and you shake it around too much, if you're zoomed into the video a lot, like on the 7 Plus where it has the amazing zoom factor, if you're zoomed in a lot, the footage might look a little bit more shaky versus on the XS Max is not going to look like that. But in terms of really everything else, it's going to look pretty even. Both cameras are very good still. The XS Max's camera is very, very good. In terms of video resolutions, they both shoot the same video resolutions, 4K at up to 60 frames per second and 1080p up to 240 frames per second. And you guys can honestly say what you want, but I'll be honest, the iPhone XS Max's camera is better. But the question still remains, is it $800 better? Is it $900 better? Is it even $500 better? That is the begging question, okay? Because both these cameras are doable, okay? I'm still a person where if you give me an iPhone 7, if you give me an iPhone 6s, I can do fine with that camera. I'll be perfectly fine. I'm not going to complain. But that's not to take away from what the XS Max has, okay? The XS Max's camera is noticeably better. The front camera is also an improvement on the XS Max. You can now shoot 1080p at 60 frames per second. Versus on the 7 Plus, you can only shoot 1080p at 30 frames per second. Is it a big deal? To me, honestly, it's not really. But 60 frames per second is the wave. And in the future, if you're not really positioning yourself for having 60 frames per second, especially if you're a content creator, a vlogger, or whatever, you can really set yourself back. I'm about to go shoot 60 frames per second in these videos too. Just because 30 frames, it's not horrible. You can see this video isn't horrible, but 60 frames does add a little bit more character, I think, to a video. And that is the main difference between these cameras in terms of the raw image stabilization and all that. But you do have to remember on the XS Max, you do have a couple of new features, which is nice, where the 7 Plus does not have. You have the bokeh effect, which is coming into later updates. It's not the bokeh effect, we already have that, but it's more so fixing the bokeh effect and kind of blurring out or unblurring the backgrounds. You also have smart HDR on the XS Max where you don't have it on the 7 Plus. Is it a big deal? Dude, you gotta ask yourself that question. Are you a professional photographer? Do you take a lot of photos on your phone? If the answer is no to both those questions, then really, I think a 7 Plus will do you just fine in terms of the camera quality. But that's not to say, like I said, the XS Max is better. But again, the burning question is it $800 better, dude? Now, as I just said, you just heard me say that the iPhone XS Max is pretty much better than the 7 Plus. But there's one aspect that the 7 Plus has that the iPhone XS Max kind of lacks in a little bit. And that's actually battery life. And believe it or not, the iPhone 7 Plus will give you better battery life than the iPhone XS Max. And now the main reason being is because the iPhone XS Max not only is more powerful, it has a lot more RAM, it has a new chip, but it also has a bigger screen that it has to power, and it's Super AMOLED. And on top of that, it's clocked higher too. And there's a higher PPI. So in that in and of itself, the 7 Plus will probably do you better in terms of the battery life overall. You have a 2900 mAh battery here, and you have a 3174 mAh battery on the XS Max. So you ask yourself wait, this has a bigger battery. How does it outperform here? But like I said earlier, bigger screen, higher resolution screen, higher PPI, this and that, higher performance and all those other things ends up leaving you with overall lower battery life. Now, that's not to say that the battery life on the XS Max is horrible, but it's definitely not as good as the 7 Plus. And I think the XS is even worse because they actually lowered the battery size, so I don't even know why they did that. Now, and that's probably my biggest gripe is that, we have a bigger phone, we have such a amazing technology, but somehow the battery life is still one of those things that ends up, just lagging out. And I think it has a lot to do with phone manufacturers focusing more on the camera and other aspects like that are already like amazing, and they lack out and they don't fix the battery life, because that's one of the problems I have. I mean, my iPhone 10, I still end up like almost going on low power mode, like on 20% every day. And like I said, I think that has a lot to do with companies focusing more on like the camera and the screen, this and that, which are awesome, but screens and cameras are already good. The XS Max screen isn't horrible. Like, it's very, very good. It's probably one of the better screens out there. But compared to something like a Galaxy Note 9, it's still not as good. But companies really need to start focusing on battery life, and I really hope they do it within the next generation of phones. Hopefully Galaxies, I think the Galaxy Note 9's battery increased up to like 4,000 milliamp hours or something. So hopefully like they end up doing that with future iPhones as well. Now, some other notable things to note. Obviously the iPhone 7 Plus has more bezel than the iPhone XS Max. You also have Touch ID on the iPhone 7 Plus, where you don't have that on the iPhone XS Max, but you do have Face ID, and apparently Face ID is better and it's like faster and all that. I don't really see it, guys. I still don't see it, but it's there for you. I prefer Touch ID, but it doesn't hurt. Another notable thing to note is that the iPhone 7 Plus has IP67 dust and water resistance, 1 meter up to 30 minutes, and the iPhone XS Max increases that up to 2 meters. So it's definitely interesting, and I actually love that a lot. I really hope companies eventually make like a waterproof phone overall. I know they have done that, but like completely, like you can just throw it into the bottom of the ocean and pick it up, and it'll just be fine. So hopefully they do that. And I think all the other features are evident. I mean, the iPhone XS Max is going to last you longer. And if you have an unlimited amount of money to spend, if your daddy or your baby daddy or your baby mama is buying you your phone, then definitely go get the XS Max. It's going to last you longer. But I'll go ahead and break this down into a couple scenarios. If you currently have an iPhone 7 Plus, should you update to an iPhone XS Max? I will probably say no, just because, I mean, it is better, it is faster, it's all this stuff, but I don't think it's worth $1,100, $1,200, $1,300, $1,500. It just seems like a little bit too much. If you currently have an iPhone 7 Plus, I would even recommend going to an iPhone 10, because that is a pretty big upgrade. That's what I did. I went from an iPhone 7 Plus as my daily driver to an iPhone 10, and I like it. I mean, I don't really have too many complaints except the battery life. So that's the scenario I would say if you're in that case. But another case I would say is if you currently don't have any of these phones, and you don't know which one you should get, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm gonna state it anyway. If you have like an iPhone 5S or a Galaxy S2 or something, I would say get an iPhone 7 Plus. Get it now, maybe like $300, maybe a little bit less. Go buy it. Wait until like December or January and buy a used iPhone XS Max. Those are probably going to be around $900. It's going to be less than $1,000. So you'll end up saving like yourself hundreds of dollars by just getting it used and waiting a couple months. And you can resell this, and the deterioration already hit on this phone. Like in terms of the price, it already depreciated. I meant to say depreciate, not deteriorate. But that's what I would do. And I think it makes more sense going that way instead of going out and buying this phone, unless you have like an upgrade on your plan or something. But other than that, guys, I would say get a 7 Plus and save your money and then get a XS Max. But I'm not saying that because the iPhone 7 Plus is better. I'm saying that in terms of a money sense. But like I said, if you have all the money in the world, go buy a XS Max. It is a better phone overall. I think it's cool, but I just don't think it's worth $1,500 or $1,200 or however much it is now. But that is my opinion, guys. If you guys have any questions or concerns or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber really does count, and it makes me feel really good about myself and makes me tingly inside. So if you guys get that, that means so much. Check out the links in the description as well. My second channel, Lo-Fi Alpaca, I do a lot of iOS stuff on that video, on that channel. So if you guys want to check that out, I'd recommend it. Please subscribe to that. I need to get 1,000 subscribers on that very soon. So I'm like 50 away. Please subscribe. My Twitter, my Instagram, all that stuff is also down there. If you guys want, hit that up. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. And hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.